I'm Jessica Lombard, Associate Superintendent.
And I'm Superintendent John Berkey, and this is Huntley 158 Today. Well, hopefully many of our viewers saw our show last week where we interviewed three gentlemen who are Huntley residents and served in the military. And we actually focused on Warren, who was in World War II, and they're back for another week, and we are going to hear more stories and more of their experiences, but talk a little bit more this time to Bob and Al about the Korean War and Vietnam.
Absolutely. So, Al, why don't we talk to you a little bit about your experiences. Again, if you could refresh us, when did you serve? And you were also in the Vietnam War. What branch?
I served during the Vietnam era.
And
as I mentioned before, our job, most of my time was at Travis Air Force Base in California, flying the C-131, the AirVac, and similar to a commercial Convair that the airlines were flying. Our job was to pick up the patients brought over from Vietnam, dropped off at Travis, and we would distribute them around the country to areas of specialization. Some of our missions were urgent, middle of the night. We'd fly a very seriously injured burn patient down to Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. One of the things I liked about my flying, Warren flew bombers, I flew transports, and as I mentioned before, my original destination, my goal was to be in the airline pilot. And I found out after graduating from pilot training, I could have gone to bombers, fighters, whatever I wanted. In Aerovac, we flew 1 hour, for every hour and 15 minutes, we had a takeoff and landing and an instrument approach. Warren flew long hours to Japan, 15 hours at a crack. And so that was the kind of time I was looking for, real experience. So I accumulated most of my flying time in those aircraft. I had 2 years over in Africa. I was privileged to be on the search mission for Gary Powers, the famed U-2 spy pilot, featured in the movie Bridges of Spies. And I was on that's a long story in itself. So I was on that mission. We supported Project Mercury, the astronauts orbiting around Africa in case they came down prematurely. I supported the Congo airlift. We staged out of Kano, Nigeria, and so I was all over Africa. Tremendously interesting flying.
Now, the Vietnam War was very controversial back at home. Is that something where, as somebody serving during that time, you really felt that as a soldier, sort of that conflict?
I really do, and I grieve over the way they were unwelcomed back to the country. It was obviously a political war, and it was run by the administration, and today we're seeing the war generally run by the generals in the field. And so, yes, it was very concerning to me. We were remote from that, but we participated in the area of supporting those who had succumbed to either illness or death.
What type of reception did you have when you got out of the military, and how you were treated?
Well, I got out in '67, so that was way post-Vietnam. So there was none of that on me. I was just no welcome parade or anything, but I just left. We joined the staff of Campus Crusade for Christ, which I found was even more challenging than flying airplanes. But that's another story in itself.
And what landed you here in the Huntley area?
Another long story. We were based in Minneapolis, took my second retirement there, and we had a choice of going to a little farm in Tennessee or moving to the Chicago area closer to our grandchildren, so we picked being close to the grandchildren. And we had lived in Algonquin for 15 years prior, but decided to move to Sun City. It was just a great place to live and work out of.
Now, Bob, you served during the Korean War era. You want to tell us about that and and where you were?
Yeah, like I reiterated earlier, I was inducted when I was 19. I'll never forget that. And kids in class will ask me, well, how did you feel? When we were in high school, we knew we had to go. We didn't have a choice. And I remember graduating from high school, and then it was in December 19th. I came home and my mother said, "It's on the step," and I knew what it was. But I said, I'm not opening that until after New Year's. I'm not going to let it wreck my holidays. So I did, and I was inducted January 9th in '53. And I was hoping I could get military training, basic training in maybe Atterbury, Indiana, or Kentucky, or someplace close, because I was engaged to be married. And what did they do? They shipped me to the farthest point that they possibly could send me, and that was Camp Roberts, California. So I took my basic in California, and the way it worked was you had a company duty roster, and it went 3 FECOM, 1 cadre, 1 Europe, and 3 FECOM. And as it turned out, I slid right in between Europe. And there was a young man who I really liked, A.W. Allen, who was in front of me on the roster. He was the only guy that had his wife at basic training, and you never did get to see her, only one time. And when the orders came down, he was to go to Korea because he was in front of me on that. He didn't last, I don't think he lasted 2 weeks, and they got him. And the Korean War, as opposed to the Vietnam War, Vietnam was about, I believe, about 7 years, and we lost about 60,000 men, which is a tremendous amount of lives that were never just cut off. Well, the Korean War, we lost 55,000 in about 2.5 or 3. So the wars were different. Korea was a slaughter field, where Vietnam, and I have empathy for those guys. This is how it was when I came back from service. Nobody ever thought anything about it. You just got your discharge and you went home and tried to find a job and get on with your life. And I felt it was a privilege to serve. Those were the best 2 years, knowledge-wise, that I ever had in my life.
So did you ever dream when you were, got out of the military and the Korean War, as we know, didn't really end? There was a ceasefire, but did you ever dream that 60 years later, Korea was still going to be a huge issue?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it was, I realized that at that time, but when you look in North and South Korea, they're extremes. That would be like Indiana and Illinois. Illinois had all the industry, Indiana had nothing. And so eventually, something had to come to pass. This guy that's in North Korea is crazy.
So one other question I have is, all of you obviously served with a lot of other really good people. Did you keep up those friendships after you left the military, or did they pretty much end after you went home?
That's a common question that I get. And no, I often wonder where they went, but when you're in the military, like for example in my room, I had a guy from Utah, one from Iowa, one from Hawaii, one from Washington, one from Florida. And at that time, the world was a little different. You didn't pick up a phone and just dial a number. No, if you're asking me a candid question, pointed question, no, I didn't. They were great guys, though. Mm-hmm.
It's like a brotherhood. Mm-hmm. It's like a family. And we kept up with each other after the war. We met every 5 years. Then it got to about every 3 years, then it was every 2 years. And we were part of the 6th Bomb Group, 3 squadrons, 15 planes in each. And the 6th Bomb Group had reunions every 5 years. My crew, I'm the last man in my crew to be alive.
Al, did you keep up with people?
With some, not as much as in combat. In combat, like Warren
Right.
said, you form this brotherhood. But the people that really made an impression on my life was early in pilot training. I'd been to church all my life, and I found out on coming to this air base in Georgia, you don't become a Christian by just going to church and doing the things, communion and baptism, any more than walking to that hangar makes you an airplane. And I found out it was a personal relationship with Christ, and it formed the trajectory of the rest of my life.
Well, I really want to thank the three of you for being here. I got to tell you, I'm not sure, we're even worthy to be sitting at the same table as you. I mean, you really are members of, what is termed now the greatest generation, and you obviously saw a lot. You helped defend this country at periods where it needed to be defended and helped get us to where we are today. And I also really appreciate that all of you are members of the Huntley community. It's great to have you in town, and really appreciate that you come and talk to our kids every year, because I think it's really important that kids that grow up today learn from the past and understand. And I think your points about how being in the military and being through those adverse experiences really help make you who you are today.
Our privilege to be here.
So
today.
again,
Yes, very
thank you
much.
very much for being a part of our community and for being on our show today. So thank you for watching Huntley 158 today from a destination school district.
Where it's all students, always.